Hi and welcome back to my channel. I'm Kim and in today's video we will look at two forms of the first infinitive, the short form and the long form, and learn how and when to use them in different sentence structures. Later on we will also discuss common expressions that use the long form of the first infinitive. At the end of this video we will as always practice what we've learned today by solving some exercises together. So let's begin with the first infinitive short form. The first infinitive short form is the basic form of a verb, often called the dictionary form, as it's the form that is used in dictionaries. Examples are puhua, which means to speak, voida, which means can, opiskella, which means to study, avada, which means to open, mainita, which means to mention, or vanheta, which means to age or to get older. All these verbs are what we call the first infinitive short form. Now the question is, what do we use the first infinitive short form for? The first infinitive serves as the base for Finnish verb types and is especially used with verbs of necessity, obligation and permission, as well as in the main verb plus infinitive structure. What does it mean? Let's take a look at some examples. Our first one is minun täytyy puhua sinulle tästä ongelmasta. Means I have to talk to you about this problem. So here we use a structure that expresses necessity, which is why the second verb puhua must be in its infinitive form. You might remember the formation of a necessity sentence, person in the genitive case, plus täytyy plus infinitive verb. Let's go step by step. Minun is the genitive case of minä, which means I. Täytyy is the third person singular present tense of täytyä, which means have to or must. And puhua means to speak, standing here in its infinitive form. Sinulle is the allative case of sinä, which means you. So sinulle means to you, and tästä ongelmasta means about this problem. Tästä is the allative case of tämä, which means this, and ongelmasta is the allative case of ongelma, which means problem. Here we have a typical example where we do express necessity. Let's repeat again. Minun täytyy puhua sinulle tästä ongelmasta. I have to talk to you about this problem. Now let's take an example where we do express permission. Ei saa koskea means don't touch, do not touch. So ei saa is a very common way to express prohibition. So whenever we see or read somewhere ei saa, then it indicates that something is not allowed or forbidden. Ei saa is, by the way, the negative form of saada, which means can, or to be allowed to do something in the sense of permission. So whenever the verb saada appears in the context of to be allowed to, it functions as a verb of permission that is followed by a second verb standing in its infinitive form. Let's repeat again. Ei saa koskea. Don't touch. And our third example. Ensi lauantaina aion mennä kirjastoon means next Saturday I intend to go to the library. So we are expressing our future intention with the aikoa plus infinitive verb structure. We have aion here, which is the first person singular present tense of aikoa, meaning to intend to, and it's followed by the infinitive verb mennä, which means to go. So we use the structure aikoa mennä when we want to express where we intend to go to. We can use it, for example, when we want to talk about our weekend plans or our summer plans. Also important to note is that while aikoa inflects according to the person, the second verb, which is here mennä, stays in its infinitive form. So let's repeat again. Ensi lauantaina aion mennä kirjastoon. Next Saturday I intend to go to the library. Alright, now we carry on with the first infinitive long form. We use the first infinitive long form when we want to express purpose. This form often replaces a subordinate clause beginning with jotta, which in English means so that, in order to, or for the purpose of something. For better understanding, here's one example. Minä muutin Japaniin, jotta oppia oppisin Japania means I moved to Japan so that I would learn Japanese. So here our main class is Minä muutin Japaniin, which means I moved to Japan, and our subordinate clause is jotta oppisin Japania, which means so that I would learn Japanese. Now if we want to instead use the first infinitive long form, we say Minä muutin Japaniin oppiakseni Japania. In English, I moved to Japan in order for me to learn Japanese. So as you see here, instead of saying jotta oppisin, we shorten it to oppiakseni, which literally means in order for me to learn. So let's repeat again. Minä muutin Japaniin, jotta oppisin Japania. And minä muutin Japaniin oppiakseni Japania. I moved to Japan in order for me to learn Japanese. Alright, now before we start with our examples, let's take a quick look at some important grammar points. So again, we use the first infinitive long form in order to express the purpose or aim of an action. So in other words, the first infinitive long form helps us expressing why or for what purpose we do something. For example, oppiakseni means in order for me to learn, or for example, lukeakseni means in order for me to read. We can pretty much say the first infinitive long form corresponds to the English in order to. Also important to mention is that the first infinitive long form is often used with verbs that show desire, effort or intention, such as haluta, yrittää, aikoa or mennä, as we see here in our example, menin baariin tavatakseni ystäväni. Literally it means I went to the bar in order for me to meet my friend. However, in English we would rather say I went to the bar to meet my friend. So here, as you see, we have the verb mennä, which means to go, in combination with tavatakseni, which is the first infinitive long form. Also note that the subject in the main clause must always match the subject of the final structure, which takes the possessive suffix. So when we look back at our previous example, which was Minä menin baariin tavatakseni ystäväni, which means I went to the bar in order for me to meet my friend, the subject here is minä, which is I in English, and the suffix ni in tavatakseni shows who performs the action in the final structure. Again, it's me. Now, the most important question is, how do we form the first infinitive long form? The formation is pretty easy. We take the infinitive verb plus xe plus the possessive suffix depending on the pronoun. Here we don't have to think about any consonant gradation rules. Now, let's take a look at some examples. Our first one is Viime vuonna menin kielikurssille oppiakseni Japania, means last year I went to a language course in order to learn Japanese. Let's go step by step. Viime vuonna means last year. Menin is the first person singular past tense of the verb mennä, which means to go. Kielikurssille is the allative case of kielikurssi, which means language course. Oppiakseni here is our first infinitive long form, which consists of the infinitive verb oppia plus xe plus the possessive suffix ni and can be translated as in order for me to learn. So here we use the first infinitive long form in order to express the purpose of going to the language course, which is learning Japanese. So let's repeat again. Viime vuonna menin kielikurssille oppiakseni Japania. Last year I went to a language course in order to learn Japanese. Let's take another example. Joonas avasi radion kuunnellakseen uutiset englanniksi. Jonas turned on the radio in order to listen to the news in English. Let's go step by step. Jonas avasi radion means Jonas turned on the radio. Avasi is, by the way, the third person singular past tense of the verb avata, and radion is the genitive case of radio. So avata radion means in English to turn on the radio. Then we have kuunnellakseen, which is our first infinitive long form. It consists of the infinitive verb kuunnella, which means to listen, plus xe plus the possessive suffix n and can be translated as in order for him to listen. So here we use the first infinitive long form to express the purpose of turning on the radio, which is listening to the news in English. Let's repeat again. Joonas avasi radion kuunnellakseen uutiset englanniksi. Jonas turned on the radio in order to listen to the news in English. One more. Viime kesänä pariisilaiset matkustivat maalle rentoutuakseen. Means, last summer, the Parisians traveled to the countryside in order to relax. Let's go step by step. Viime kesänä means last summer. Pariisilaiset means the Parisians. Matkustivat is the third person plural past tense of the verb matkustaa, which means to travel. Maalle can be translated as to the countryside. It's the allative case of maa. And then we have rentoutuakseen, which is our first infinitive long form. It consists of the infinitive verb rentoutua plus xe plus the possessive suffix n and can be translated as in order for them to relax. So here we use the first infinitive long form to express the purpose of traveling to the countryside, which is relaxing. Let's repeat again. Viime kesänä pariisilaiset matkustivat maalle rentoutuakseen. Last summer, the Parisians traveled to the countryside in order to relax. Now, just to review the possessive suffixes, I've also made a chart for you, which we'll quickly go through now. Our example verb is harjoitella, which means to practice. So let's begin. Harjoitellakseni is a combination of harjoitella plus xe plus ni, and it means in order for me to practice. Harjoitellaksesi is a combination of harjoitella plus xe plus si, and it means in order for you to practice. Harjoitellakseen is a combination of harjoitella plus xe and plus n, and it means in order for him or her to practice. Harjoitellaksemme is a combination of harjoitella plus xe plus me and means in order for us to practice. Harjoitellaksenne is a combination of harjoitella plus xe plus ne and means in order for you, plural, to practice. And harjoitellakseen is a combination of harjoitella plus xe plus n and means in order for them to practice. Now let's learn some common expressions that use the long form of the first infinitive, which can be translated as far as. So, muistaakseni is a combination of muistaa plus xe plus ni, and it means as far as I remember. Tietääkseni is a combination of tietää plus xe plus ni, and it means as far as I know. Ymmärtääkseni is a combination of ymmärtää plus xe plus ni, and it means as far as I understand. Nähdäkseni is a combination of nähdä plus xe plus ni, and literally it means as far as I see, but it's meant as far as I understand. Luullakseni is a combination of luulla plus xe and plus ni, and it means as far as I believe in the sense of as far as I can tell. And käsittääkseni is a combination of käsittää plus xe plus ni and means as far as I understand. Käsittää means to understand or to comprehend. Now let's use them in sentences. For example, tietääkseni Joey asuu New Yorkissa. Means, as far as I know, Joey lives in New York. Let's go step by step. Tietääkseni means, as far as I know. Asuu is the third person singular present tense of the verb asua, which means to live, and New Yorkissa means in New York. Here we use the inessive case. So let's repeat again. Tietääkseni Joey asuu New Yorkissa. Means, as far as I know, Joey lives in New York. Next one. Muistaakseni Amy tulee huomenna. Means, As far as I remember, Amy's coming tomorrow. So let's go step by step. Muistaakseni can be translated as far as I remember. Tule here is the third person singular present tense of the verb tulla, which means to come, and huomenna means tomorrow. So let's repeat again. Muistaakseni Amy tulee huomenna. As far as I remember, Amy's coming tomorrow. Next one. Ymmärtääkseni konsertti on peruttu means, as far as I understand, the concert has been cancelled. So let's go step by step. Ymmärtääkseni means, as far as I understand. Konsertti means concert, and on peruttu is the passive perfect of perua, which means to cancel. Let's repeat again. Ymmärtääkseni konsertti on peruttu. As far as I understand, the concert has been cancelled. One more. A is asking, onko Jussi kirjastossa? And B is answering, ei minun tietääkseni. In English, A is asking, is Jussi in the library? And B is answering, not as far as I know. So let's go step by step. Onko Jussi kirjastossa means, is Jussi in the library? Onko is, by the way, a combination of the third person singular present tense of olla plus the question marker go. And kirjastossa is the inessive case of kirjasto, which means library. Onko Jussi kirjastossa means, is Jussi in the library? And ei minun tietääkseni means, not as far as I know, or more literally, not to my knowledge. So let's repeat again. Onko Jussi kirjastossa? Is Jussi in the library? Ei minun tietääkseni. Not as far as I know. Now we arrived at our last chapter, the exercises. Here's our first one. The task is to rewrite the sentence by using the first infinitive long form. Minä muutin Japaniin, jotta oppisin Japania. I moved to Japan so that I would learn Japanese. For this task we have 5 seconds. That's right, the answer is minä muutin Japaniin oppiakseni Japania. I moved to Japan in order for me to learn Japanese. Next one. Again here fill in the gap by using the first infinitive long form. Last summer, the Parisians traveled to the countryside in order for them to relax. Viime kesänä pariisilaiset matkustivat maalle. What do we need here? Perfect. The answer is rentoutuakseen. Viime kesänä pariisilaiset matkustivat maalle rentoutuakseen. Last summer, the Parisians traveled to the countryside in order for them to relax. Next one. Here you have to translate. I make the first one with you. In order for me to practice is in Finnish, harjoitellakseni. Now fill in the other ones. Excellent. In order for you to practice is harjoitellaksesi. In order for him or her to practice is harjoitellakseen. In order for us to practice is harjoitellaksemme. In order for you to practice, plural, is harjoitellaksenne. And in order for them to practice is harjoitellakseen. Alright, next one. We want to say, as far as I know, Joey lives in New York. Joey asuu New Yorkissa. How do you say, as far as I know? Excellent. The answer is tietääkseni. Tietääkseni Joey asuu New Yorkissa. As far as I know, Joey lives in New York. Next one. We want to say, as far as I remember, Amy's coming tomorrow. Amy tulee huomenna. How do we say, as far as I remember? Excellent. The answer is muistaakseni. Muistaakseni Amy tulee huomenna. As far as I remember, Amy's coming tomorrow. And our last one for today, translate into Finnish. As far as I remember, as far as I know, as far as I understand, as far as I see, in the sense of as far as I understand, as far as I believe, in the sense of as far as I can tell, and as far as I understand. For this task we have 10 seconds. Alright, let's compare. As far as I remember is muista kseni. As far as I know is tiedä kseni. As far as I understand is ymmärtää kseni. As far as I see is nähdä kseni. As far as I believe, in the sense of as far as I can tell, is luullakseni. And another way to say as far as I understand is käsittääkseni. Alright, that's it for today. I hope you liked this video. If you want to learn more Finnish, please don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Thank you so much for watching, have a nice day, and see you next time.